Okay guys, in the last section we just finished the book up, if you recall. We do still have to punch the holes on the sides for the tags, but we'll do that as we get to it, when we get to the tags. So right now, I'm going to bring out my chipboard, and for the life of me, I cannot find my craft knife. I know I have one here. I have the refills for it. I can't find the actual holder. So I'm not going to show you how I'm going to cut it, because I'm going to do something funky. I don't know. I'm going to have to get this cut somehow, but hopefully I'll find it. But this is the chipboard, and it's going to be for the binder, okay, for the actual, the book binder. So what I'm going to do, I already have my measurements for the actual front and back covers. You need to cut your chipboard slightly larger than your book. I always like to do it just a little bit larger, just in case the book ends up sticking out, because sometimes things shift around and whatever else. So I like to have a little bit of a lip. So we're going to cut two of these front and back, right? Two pieces, cut at 3 5/8 inch by 5 1/4 inch, okay? And so 3 5/8 is going to be a little bit wider than the book, a little bit taller, and then a little bit longer at 5 1/4 inches. And then I'm also going to need a piece for the binding for the back, you know, the actual binding of the book. And I had originally said 3 5/8 of an inch because it's going to be the same height as the, the front and back, and 1 inch wide. I like to keep my books kind of tight, so what I would do, I would recommend before you just cut things and check it out, is measure the width of your book. So like this one ended up growing a little bit. It's going to be like about 1 1/8 of an inch across. And all I did was lay it down like this and measure it, on my mat here, and I can see that it's about almost 1 1/4, but it's about 1 1/8 or so. So my paper or my binding that I'm going to cut is going to be 1 1/8 inch wide. Okay, so if yours ends up being 1 1/2 or something different, or if you add more pages, it's going to be thicker and thicker, then measure that width, and that's how wide you're going to cut the back strip, but still 3 5/8 inches tall, so that it matches your front and back flap. So I'm going to cut these. Usually what I do, and I'll show you real quick, hopefully I don't drop anything, is I use my cutting mat. This ruler came with this cutting mat, and it's a magnetized ruler, and it has metal, so I really like that because I'm not going to cut into it. It's just going to still glide right by there, so I'll do that. And I kind of set it up on my cutting mat so I know how wide, or however I'm cutting, and I get my craft knife and I just cut it. Okay, sometimes it takes a couple times to get in there, and that's it. So I'm going to get this cut, and when we come back we will cover them in paper. Cut, I finally found my craft knife. It was just up in there that I thought I was keeping things nice and neat, all together, and then I forgot I totally put it up in this basket up high, and I don't know what happened. I looked up that way and I thought, oh my gosh, there they are. So anyhow, so again, our pieces are cut 3 5/8 by 5 1/4, two of those. This one's cut at 1 and about 1/8 inches wide, but 3 5/8 inches tall still. So we have those pieces. And then we need paper for the front and the back. If you want them to match, like I did both the same, then you can do that. You can do different papers. It doesn't matter, whatever you want. But these, to cover the front and back, you're gonna need these cut. Well, I didn't write it down because I'm so silly. Let me see. Let me measure it here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this is 4 5/8 inches wide. It's 1 inch taller than the chipboard, and then in the length I only added 1/2 inch, so it should be 5 3/4 inches. Yeah, I like to add 1/2 inch for each side. What I mean by that is when I put this down, you're only going to cover one of the side edges, because the other one's going to go into the binding anyway, so you don't have to like cover that. It doesn't make much sense. So you just leave it like that, and then a 1/2 inch for the top and bottom, so it adds 1 inch to the top and bottom, and then a 1/2 inch to the side. Okay, and so what we're gonna do here is, and you need two of those. I'm gonna use my ATG only because I don't know where my score tape is right now, but the other thing about score tape is stronger. It's a better tape in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, but I'm gonna use my ATG. If you have score tape, use that, or like that one I just showed you from Be Creative, or Rubber Stamp Cafe. And I'm just going to go, oops, see, I haven't used this in a while, across the very edge. Let me get this back on here. Okay, across the very edge. So you want it at the very, very sides, and then you're gonna put a whole bunch down the middle, everywhere. Okay, you're just gonna fill this up with tape. You don't want it to end up coming up. So I'm gonna put tape all over this thing, and I'll come back when it's all on. I talked to you guys about this, about the ATG, the rolls I received recently that like weren't wound right, or they were wound backwards and kind of weird. This one, I don't know if you can see this, it's bent, like it's coming out like in a cone shape almost, and that's why it keeps going off the side. It won't stay flat So anyway, I'm just struggling with the thing, but if yours isn't doing that, that's great. Mine is, and it's really annoying. But anyhow, okay, so let's say I have it all in there. And if your paper, again, has a direction, upside down, you know, whatever, left to right, make sure you pay attention to that before you start binding your paper. So I'm going to put this down. Mine doesn't. It has an up and down, but not left to right. And I'm going to put the sticky side down. And if you don't use glue, wet glue, you know, do whatever you like. Sometimes with the wet glue, you have to be very careful that you don't get air bubbles. Even with this, like right now, I'm going to push it. My hand doesn't come out here. I'm trying to push the air bubbles out, okay? You don't want to trap any air bubbles in there. And if you want to burnish it a little bit, you can definitely do that on both sides. And as you see, I lined it up to the one side. This other side is going to be the free edge that I still need to cover. And so what I usually do here is on these corners, if you just start bending it and you start bending your paper over, it's going to leave some bulk there. So I kind of cut it so that you have a little bit of maybe 1/8 of an inch left there, because you also don't want a bare corner, right? So I just eyeball that. And so now what we're going to do is just bend the paper over, and see I'm bending it on itself so that the paper curves up, just so that it knows kind of where it needs to go. There's construction going on out here, guys, and it's been going on for months, so that's probably what you hear back there. Or I know that's what you hear back there. So anyhow, okay, so we want to get that. Again, score tape works awesome. I would run some all on the very edges and everything. But this time I'm going to use this dreadful ATG. I don't know what this thing is doing. You can see that? It keeps coming off. So I'm going to do this off camera because it's just going to be annoying for you guys. But I'm going to put ATG all over this side, all on this edge, and all on the bottom. ATG, or if you're using wet glue, you use your wet glue. And generally what I like to do is kind of put one side down, and we already have it kind of bent, so it kind of knows what it wants to do. And the other side, and then bring the smaller flap up and over. Or you can do the small flap first and the other side. It doesn't matter. I'm going to burnish these a little bit, and then when you get to this point, if you have a little bit left here, you know, you can kind of push it in there so it makes a nicer fold, and fold that last bit over and smooth it down. Let's burnish it. Okay, so because my ATG is fighting with me, this one's not as good as I usually do, but this is going to be the front cover because of the direction of the paper, okay? So this is going to be my front cover on the left side, and over on the right, you're going to do the other paper, the back side, okay? So this is the paper, this is the direction it should be in, so if I had them laying down, it'd be open like this. When they close, they're like this, okay? So what you got to remember is on this side, you're going to align your chipboard on the left, okay? Because that's where the binding's going to go. The binding's going to cover this part here. So this time, you just basically make an opposite of this one. So if this one's on this side, this other one's going to be lined up. See, I lined up my chipboard on the right of the paper. This one's going to be lined up on the left of the paper. I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to put glue all over it, stick it down, bend the edges, and I'm going to have two opposite front and back covers. And my backs ready to go. What we're going to do is put these to the side just for a minute, as you can see. And we're going to bring the piece that goes in the middle, okay? So these guys go out here. This piece goes in the middle. Now for this one, to cover it, all I did was cut a piece of the pink paper because it is actually really nice. I thought, okay, sometimes with glitter paper, if you bend it, it tears. This one seemed like it wasn't going to do it, so I thought, okay, I'm going to use it. Hopefully it works okay. So yeah, it has a nice feel to it. So this one, I just cut as wide as, well, I cut it as wide as I would feel like, because you want to cover the inch or inch and a half or whatever. Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, I'm busy. But it's still an inch taller than the 3 5/8 of an inch. So it's 4 5/8 of an inch. And then I cut it, I think, 4 inches wide, because I knew this piece is going to go here and this one's going to go here. And then that gives it a little bit, so that in the front you have some of the decorative part of it here, okay? But what I'm going to do before I stick these pieces down is I'm going to also paper punch it with the same doily lace punch. So I'm going to start in the middle and then go on both sides, okay? Now when you're making your book, if you want more of this binding part in the front, then just make it longer, okay? Make it longer, because mine's going to be about this much showing in the front there. But if you want yours like out here, for whatever, just make it the strip a little bit wider, okay? So all these things, obviously, they're interchangeable. Do whatever you like. So we're gonna have the two pieces. This is my front one. This is my back piece. Again, if they have a direction, pay attention. You don't have to stick these down yet, but I'm just placing them where they're supposed to be. And then we have the middle piece. That again, if you have your score tape, we're going to stick it down. So I'm just going to put some of this all along this to the very sides. Another reason wet glue isn't the best either is because chipboard is a bunch of paper or pieces of, like, you know, when they put it together, it's just thin sheets of paper compressed, and not so much that it's paper, I don't know how to explain it, like sheets, but it's compressed paper. So if you were to just take off this top piece, it would just come right off. So if you have wet glue on here, the wet glue will just come right off. It'll just tear that first little layer off and it's gone. So this stuff has a little bit of give, like I said, doesn't really dry. The adhesives like this, this kind, where glue would dry, and it just makes a different dilemma. Okay, so for me, for mini albums, I use for this kind of thing, I use the dry adhesive, even though it stays kind of wet, if that makes any sense, guys. So okay, I try to put that right in the middle. I know it's a little bit too much to the left. Actually, I'm going to turn that around so that way that'll be on the front. So these guys we are going to place on one on either side, okay, for that part of the binding. Now, how far apart do you keep these? Generally the rule of thumb is 2 widths of your chipboard. So if your chipboard, my chipboard here, and 2 pieces wide. So I'm putting these 2 pieces together, and I'm going to put them right in here, and it kind of gives you an idea of how far apart these guys should be. So it's not too much, it's just that space right there, okay? And again, I would just kind of line it up, and it lets me eyeball it. You can actually stick it down, like put some glue and get it ready, but for me it just kind of gives me an idea of how far apart those should be. So what I'm going to do is put my adhesive all along there from the top to the bottom, okay? Actually, I missed that part on the top here. Again, space it out, okay? But from the top to the bottom, and then you're gonna want some in this middle section too. So I'm gonna put that down right now, okay? And that one from the very edges all the way to where the chipboard's touching. So for the other ones, you kind of leave a space, but this one, you're gonna put it together. So now we're going to lay down our front and our back, again, kind of keeping an idea of how far of your spacing, okay? And then you can get those chipboard right now and put them right down there to kind of help you space it out if you still need help with that. And put it down nice and straight. And then I'm going to burnish all of this, okay? So I'm going to push on this for a little while to make sure that's going to stay down. There we go. Now I'm going to, again, train the top and the bottom. And there's already tape on there, right? We had just put it on there. So we're just going to kind of let that sink in there a little bit. I give this one a little bit of give because you don't want it to end up ripping because of the edges here in that middle part. So I just let it be a little bit looser than normal. And then we're going to burnish that. Make sure the edges are nice and taut. And here you have the outside of your binder. And what we're going to do is just kind of, I take my tool here and kind of push in to those spaces and kind of give it a little bit of a, train your book to start opening up and closing that way, okay? And then you're going to have your little binder. Isn't that cute? Oh my goodness, I love making binders. They're so fun. And if you don't want to use the binding I'm making, you can use like ribbon. You can put holes here. If there's anything that you want to put in here before you put the inside in, then you definitely want to do that. If there's holes that you want to make or a little latch that you're going to be putting in, whatever, you want to go ahead and stick those in there before we put the rest. But I'm just going to do a very basic book. So now we're going to get our book, and I'm just going to kind of line it up nice and straight in here. And basically these flaps, we're going to glue them down, and there are 1/4 inch binding areas here on either side. If you recall, that's how we left it open. That part's going to stick there, and the other one's going to stick on the other side. Now it's kind of hard to tell here. Okay, so that's pretty much how it's going to be, and then your book is going to open and close, you know, like this. So I am going to apply, you can do, again, wet adhesive, dry, whatever you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and use this dry one. And I'm going to apply And this book is going to end up standing at attention, I always call it, because of how it's put together at the beginning, okay? So this is my front of my book, that's the front of my book. I'm not putting any glue in that 1/4 inch space. It's just right here, and I'm going to center it as well as I can and bring it to the very edge of my board, like right in here, okay? And centering it if I can. We're gonna glue that right down, okay? And as you can see, it does not go all the way across. I leave it about 2 inches because I want it to stay down securely. If you don't leave that little amount of space, you're just gonna have a little tiny flap that might end up falling out or however. I probably should put this on here before I stuck it down, but that's okay. There's gonna be another piece of paper that covers this up, so I'm not too concerned. And then I bring this part up, and again, we're gonna stick it right to the front cover, not the binding, but the very front cover side, okay? Let me try to get that in there. This one's a little bit trickier. I don't want to put it in there crooked either. Let me bring it up a little bit. It's a little bit more crooked than I would like. Sorry, I had to kind of face it towards me to see what I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to burnish that. Make sure that sticks down real nice and well. Burnish that front one. And basically there's our book with its little pages in the inside. Isn't that cute? Okay, so to finish it, I am going to add inner covers. And I've already had mine cut down and I already distressed around the edges just like we did with the rest of the pages. And basically these are the same as I think as our flaps. Let me see. Yeah, let me make sure. That's it's a little bit bigger than 3 1/4 actually. Let me see here. It's 3 3/8 by 5. Okay, so it's just a little bit smaller than the actual a 1/4 inch smaller than the flaps themselves. So 3 3/8 by 5, and we are going to put lots of ATG on this too. And I am going to make some tags, so this is it for the binding, but in the next section we'll just have some tags that I'm going to make. So try to put as much glue as you like on here. Make sure you do a nice good job there. And then we're going to place our binder, the inside of the book. Oops. Nice and straight if you can get it. Right now I didn't do a very good job. I'm paying attention. There's too much going on outside. It's really bothering me. Distracting. So that's the inside of the book, and I'm going to do the same thing for the back page, okay? So the back is going to have the same little lining. I'm going to stick it down right back here. And stay tuned for the next one. We'll do some embellishing.